And away we go.
I was gonna ask for some top 80s album picks. Like
it's the most loaded question of all time.
No, I'm not saying
it's a good one though. Or you mean records that had the most impact on you?
Well, you can't possibly
Desert Island
know.
80s records.
For whatever reason, it's Bulletproof. It's a front to backer. It's your favorite. You think musically it did the most for a genre of music. Whatever it is that it stands out. There's so many. So it's not a right or wrong answer because
I got a top three that it's just when I'm not thinking about it and when there's no no pressure, no being fucking cool, no being whatever, just it's to me it's a desert island vibe.
Yeah,
where it's just are you fucking kidding? Well, but desert island to me it incorporates so much. It's
of course it does.
The ones that have meant the most, the ones you would still listen to now. The ones that had a formative seminal impact on your conception of music and I'm a musician. You guys we all love music, right?
Yeah.
And
but also the ones that are gonna keep you somewhat buoyant on a desert island. That's why we've talked about movies before and I'm sorry, I love both of those movies to death.
Well, and
if I'm going to a desert island, I'm going with Uncle Buck. I am not going with
but we're also none of us are ever going to a desert island where we're going to need to do this.
It seems like I would
just
need
shot
a
hole in the bottom of the boat, Phil. You may end up on a desert island.
Yeah. Well, not if he has Flex Seal.
Oh. Tony, you've had a minute to think about it. You haven't really.
If you're going to put me on the spot, music didn't really come online for me until a little bit later, but I would still probably do for the 80s, I would say that Duran Duran album with the
Rio.
Is that the name of the album? Is Rio?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a definite pinnacle. That is the 80s to me.
Yep.
Let's Dance Bowie. And that album is a 100% 80s front to backer.
Great pick, yeah.
I got to look at the tracks on that. Okay.
And then, for a third album, that's a toughie because I had to cling on to my sisters a lot of way.
Right. But now, you look at what you.
Okay, well, if I was to look back now, it's going to be obviously any Cure album before the Cure really found their sound. That first album was a little clunky for me, but the second one, whose name escapes me right now, because like I said, with this question is brand new. That's another front to backer.
Right.
Yeah, I'm kind of at a loss, but please, if anybody else wants to jump in.
I'm curious for Phil too. I don't want
top three.
Well, you could make it top 1, 2, 3, 4 if something's coming to mind. Not just this is that's a great, but really just some sort of watershed.
Michael Jackson's Thriller, Metallica's Kill 'Em All, and Van Halen's 1984, I think.
Okay. Yeah, Van Halen is a hard one.
1984 to me is the ethos of everything optimistic and musically unfucking touchable, and that's just
and sonically there are a few albums from that time period with better production. You can turn that up.
Someone just did this thing on YouTube where they were able to isolate his guitar tracks. You can just listen to just the guitar tracks from the record. I did it last week.
Okay.
It's incendiary. It's stupid. It's dumb.
Editing this will remind me to watch that.
Kill 'Em All. It's to think about. To go back to Beat Street for a second. You see this really just growing, beautiful subgenre of hip hop being a derivative of R&B and jazz and all this stuff, and really finding its sea legs. And then you see thrash metal with Kill 'Em All just being what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Yeah. And knowing now in hindsight all of the things that it's going to spawn.
Yeah.
And all of the disparate metal movements that that record created and started from nothing. It had its antecedents, of course, but that album's definitely a big bang thing.
Yeah,
to
that's
me.
why I say you can look back, because
and
it
Thriller,
can be like
dude, I would dwell with that record at the age of like 6 or 7 years old on vinyl. Just look at the cover.
yeah.
Look at like the vinyl, like the LP, and just play it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again.
That
like
music
until,
video premiere was a big deal.
Oh yeah, that was bro.
Yeah, I was talking about Wild Boys
That
the other
record's
day too
fucking
to
sick,
Annalisa,
dude.
because I'm like, Wild Boys was like Thriller. It was like $1 million video that Duran Duran made. It was like
yeah.
what they spent on videos was just
the fanfare around that Thriller video.
Yeah, that was
I remember
like nothing
my
else.
family,
Global
my
moment.
dad brought home Chinese dinner, and we all like sat around the TV waiting for it to come. Do you remember that? It was like a 20-minute.
I don't like personally. I don't. But
it was like MTV had like a whole night planned around it.
Yeah, that makes
wild. That's wild. And
I
then
didn't
your
witness
dad,
any of it in real time. I think that record was 83. I was like, I picked it up like in 87, 88 or something. And I love the cross pollination with, Eddie Van Halen and Bad. And I mean, or Beat It, sorry.
I watched a site, a filming location visit for Beat It.
Oh yeah, dude.
Recently, and they went to the warehouse where the trucking, where they did the dance at the end and everything, and I did one for Borderline from Madonna too,
yeah, I mean, I could do there's some Madonna records that would come in there, like the Queen, like this Queen is Dead, like there's so much shit, and then there's Tangerine Dream, like weird shit that opened my mind when I was.
There is,
but those three are like, I think of what they came from, what they were, and what they spawned, and what they represented. I'd stand by those. I'd stand by those. I really would.
That's a tough one though, because then you just brought up a good point. You said Tangerine Dream instantly reminded me of
just maybe
Under the Cherry Moon.
Oh yeah,
and I was like, oh fuck, I forgot all about how awesome Prince is.
That's the thing.
Right.
Yeah,
and it's such a tough question.
It's literally one of the hardest questions.
To me, it's not as hard because to me, a front to backer. There's tons of front to backers, not tons, but there's lots of front to backers, but there's some that like, not just every song is good and not just every song is on par with each other, but like every note of every song. It's like 1984. It's like Van Halen. There's nothing, there's no filler on there.
There's no fat whatsoever.
So for me, for mine, it's Disintegration is definitely number one.
Such a contender, dude.
And it was 89, so it had all the best of the 80s because it's beyond the 80s. It doesn't even feel like an 80s record in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
It had what was to come, period, musically in a lot of ways. Even though it's not like it invented a new genre, but just something about the depth of.
And you just remind me of that fucking Pet Shop Boys album.
See, yeah, it just keeps.
It's like I can't.
It's okay.
It's a real Sophie's choice, you guys.
For me, it's definitely I have Rio, I have Purple.
You guys had two of the same ones.
Okay.
Look at you.
Disintegration for sure.
Y'all should be homies.
We should be. Let me get your number. Purple Rain, Rio, Disintegration, and for a different reason, I always go to Electric by The Cult just because of how impactful to me that album is to music in general, even though it's only something that you don't hear people talk about it unless it comes up and they're like, it was just such a revelation, that sound from that band in the year it came out, considering it's not like it changed anything,
right?
But like it's just a breath of fresh air that even now it's like, oh my god, an 80s rock record that like no reverb and not just so clean and dry and live and just forward motion. But then they're nothing like, Rio, Purple Rain, or, Disintegration for me. But I wanted to throw a proper rock record in there. And beyond that, it would be like Nothing Shocking and like Loud Love by Soundgarden. For me, personally. But for albums, period, it's definitely Rio.
It's so weird to consider Loud Love part of the 80s canon, but you're right. I mean, it's just, that's a head fuck.
It's 89 as well, you know. There's a lot of music that came out in 89 that I could throw in there, but that's for personal reasons. But for music,
we're not even thinking hardcore records.
No,
you know,
no.
I mean, as
It's
much as
like-
I want to even involve that, it's, you know, that like I didn't start getting into punk rock and hardcore until like the latter part of the 80s.
Yeah.
Prior to that, I was like, I mean, fuck, we talked about that Rattle and Hum album.
Yeah.
And
I mean, the Joshua
Joshua
exactly.
Tree,
Jesus Christ, yeah.
obviously, Boy is one of the
Oh yeah.
best of the 1980s records. I mean, they didn't get a lot of radio play
Oh man.
for, you know, except for that one fucking Sunday Bloody Sunday song, which was, you know, everywhere. But
Yeah.
that whole entire album is a front to back.
I think it's kind of hard because
The Joshua Tree.
in hindsight,
Damn, dude.
in hindsight, we know how great these
and they're an
albums
easy
are.
band to shit on now because
Fuck
you know.
that. I don't.
But
even
you know,
get me-
I
don't
know
even get me
that you don't
started,
subscribe to that, and I don't really care either way.
Yeah. Fuck people that. Yeah.
But it's funny to me when bands fall out of favor and they become like, you know,
A parody of their former
the joke
solos.
du jour
Yeah,
or
right,
whatever.
right.
Yeah.
Which they set themselves up for that, but that's not.
Well, we had that really long discussion about that Lemon album.
Well,
and
Octung Baby. Yeah.
yeah, sorry. Yeah.
No, you're thinking like well, Zeropa, that whole era, but yeah. We
And I
talked
never
about
looked
that
at it
for a
from
while.
the perspective.
Right, and I sent
from
you
which
that video, right? Like,
yes, you did. Yeah,
which
yeah.
was amazing articulation of like what they were doing, and yeah,
And it missed me. It completely went over my
totally,
head.
yeah.
But, you know, anyway, I'm sorry. I don't mean to get too
No,
far away.
No, that's all right. I was just thinking I was going to say that. He's got the Octung
Oh, yeah,
Baby.
okay.
Got the Octung Baby shirt on,
Yeah,
right?
baby.
Right now, as we speak, yeah.
I think for like
It looks like that center picture looked like The Damned.
Yeah,
I think for me for some of these top album picks,
they knew that.
there's the ones that I can look back on and appreciate after the fact, and I can put in there. But then there are the ones that I've listened to since then, that I've listened to so many times in places in life that they absolutely are timeless, and no matter where or when you put it on, like Rio, I'm convinced that it still sounds completely of the time even now. Like it still sounds fresh, it still sounds new. It'll still take you on a trip around the globe, like culturally somehow. And Purple Rain will do the same thing, and Disintegration will do the same thing. There are other albums that I think it's hard for me to separate the timelessness of the music from the timelessness they have for me with that music. Like Rio, it sounds like it was made tomorrow to me.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
and so does Purple Rain. It feels like it was made in the future still.
fully enmeshed into like
In a lab of perfection. Like it's just crazy, you know. But
I mean, I love Purple Rain. Not a front to backer for me, but I love it.
you ever read the track listing? It's like, for me, because of I'm like, there are front to backers where I'm like, okay, I know all the tracks, I like all the tracks, I listen to all the tracks. But it's like, for me, this is part one of a greatest hits, like the most important of his greatest hits. And it's an album. I'm like, how for me is like, okay, I'm going to make a playlist of Prince. I'm like, all the top songs that come up for him, I'm going to pick all of them. I'm going to be like, they're all from Purple Rain. And I'm compiling my favorite. You know,
It's a great record, yeah.
You know, it is great. Anyway, we've kept,